Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, so you know what that means.
Hi.
It's In Touch, Tuesday evenings with the Miller Boyzzz, where we talk about all things impacting the African American community of the city of Fresno and the surrounding area. And it's always a pleasure to be here to talk to people who know us, people who love us, and
who don't mind. This is an opinion show. This ain't total on all facts. So don't be barking at me about I was wrong, because I don't care. But anyway, we love you.
As always,
we love you. And happy Cinco de Mayo. My
I got
sombrero.
I don't have no sombrero, but I got I'm trying to practice pronouncing this. A guayabera. It's a traditional Mexican shirt. It's a Mexican dashiki.
Okay.
So that's what I'm wearing today.
I ain't mad at you for that one.
Guayabera. As comfortable as I don't know. It's a little thick, but it's very, very comfortable. But happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. I'll talk about that in a little bit because I did a little research on Cinco de Mayo because people get confused with Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day. But we'll get back to that in a second. A couple things right off the bat, if you don't mind. Census 2020. Make sure you complete your census form. Look there at the bottom of the screen. That is the website for you to go online to complete your Census 2020 form. We need everybody. I see on Facebook every day, I see these new births and people having babies and babies on the way and grandparents, all that kind of stuff. Please make sure that those babies are counted into the census. Everybody should be counted in the census.
4 questions. It's not that hard. Take your time.
It took about 5 minutes. Like I said, I was able to do basically 2 residents, myself and mom and dad. I did theirs based off of their address. Mm-hmm. So when you go into the website there, you're going to link in using your address. And you don't have to have any information with you other than just the address. You log in there and then you list all the people that are living at your house. But please make sure you get that done. The initial deadline was going to be May 15th, I believe it is. And now because of what's going on with the coronavirus, they've extended into the fall, into October, I believe it is. But still, doesn't matter. Don't wait till the last minute. Go to www.census.gov / and go do your census. Do it right. You can do it right now as you're listening to us tonight. One other thing here locally that I wanted to get into real quick. Hopefully, KP, you can pull up the link on the coronavirus testing. It's in the Fresno Bee today. There are 4 sites, I believe it is, all throughout Fresno County that is taking online reservations for people to sign up and get tested for the coronavirus. Took me about 5 minutes to go through the questionnaire today, online questionnaire, and I have an appointment 8 o'clock on Thursday morning at Fresno City College. So I'm encouraging everybody. It's important for me because I'm helping to take care of my parents who are both elderly, and I have to go by there and check on them every day. And so I want to make sure that I'm not taking it, as my mama say, she don't want no bad news. And so I'm gonna go get tested on Thursday, and hopefully I have good news for her as far as easing her mind, because I feel fine, but just easing her mind about what's going on. But the website is lhi.care, CARE / COVID testing. Again, that's LHI. It's on the screen there. Hopefully you can see it. LHI.CARE /COVIDTESTING. So LHI.care / COVID testing. And this is for anywhere in California. So if you're watching us and you're outside the state of California, there may be a different link for you. But anybody and everybody in every county in Fresno, or every county in the state in California, should be able to go to that link, plug in there, and then you'll find a testing site that's near you. And I think that's important for us to be able to handle what's going on, especially here in this area. Fresno's been doing relatively well. I want to say we're around 300 positive infections. But just south of us in Tulare County, Visalia opened back up. They did a bunch of stuff down there during Easter, and now they got a big, huge push, a surge in their infection rates.
Yes, they believe that they're going to be able to stop these, but as long as they social gather, and start playing peekaboo and hide and seek and all this stuff.
It's 2 weeks after. It's 2 weeks after Easter. Yeah. And those folks in Tulare County were having those Easter services and those type of things. And like they said, it's about a 10 to 14 day incubation before some people are showing outward signs of infection. And so that kind of it aligns with the timeline there. I'm concerned because Tulare County is just south of us. Visalia is the biggest county, is the biggest city down there. And Clovis and Fresno are talking about, our mayor-elect is talking about opening 100 businesses in the city of Fresno by May 15th. Clovis is talking about opening businesses in their city. We're talking about going back to school the first 2 weeks of June, the last 2 weeks of their school year. And so with that kind of activity around here, I think that it's very, very important that everybody go out and get tested. So it's just like with the AIDS epidemic. Everybody was talking about, do I got it? Well, the only way you're going to find out if you got it or don't have it is by going to get tested. And so that's why people should go to this lhi.care/COVID testing and arrange for you to be able to go and get tested at one of the 4 sites here in Fresno County. So I want to get those 2 announcements out right at the beginning.
Okay.
What you got a big grin on your face for?
I guess we good.
I'm just doing, I try to do public announcements as best I can. I think those are pressing.
Yes, I understand.
So, staying on the political tip, have you seen the new video that's put out by the conservative the Lincoln Project? And the Lincoln Project is
that local or is that?
That's national.
National. Okay. No, I haven't seen it, but I've heard some of their things from the Lincoln group or whatever. You
got to check it out. People say Lincoln, and Lincolns and Republicans are aligned because Lincoln, I believe it was the Republican Party's first president, if I'm not mistaken, because before that
he was a president who freed the slaves. Yeah. Who was Republican, who the conservatives and they always refer back to the party of Lincoln.
Right, because at that time the South was heavily ran by Democrats at that particular time, and the Republicans were in the North there.
So what does it say? What is it?
But they're talking. They have this new video out that's called "Mourning in America," but it's not mourning as in mourning in the sun. It's mourning as in being sorrowful. It's MOURING. So mourning, sadness, and it talks about the coronavirus, and it says 60,000 deaths there. I understand we went across 70,000 deaths today. Talks about the economy being tanked out, talking about 26 million people who will file for unemployment, and how we are not ready. The country wasn't ready for what was going on. And so how can we afford another 4 years of this administration?
Who? The conservatives?
The conservatives are saying that.
Oh,
that's
wow.
That's why
that was a twist.
You got to go check it out. KB, can you pull it up real quick? Hopefully he's got it right there. Here's the video right here.
There's mourning in America.
So hopefully you're able to pick it up on your
Today, more than 60,000 Americans have died from a deadly virus Donald Trump ignored. With the economy in shambles, more than 26 million Americans are out of work, the worst economy in decades. Trump bailed out Wall Street, but not Main Street. This afternoon, millions of Americans will apply for unemployment. And with their savings run out, many are giving up hope. Millions worry that a loved one won't survive COVID-19. There's mourning in America. And under the leadership of Donald Trump, our country is weaker and sicker and poorer. And now, Americans are asking, if we have another 4 years like this, will there even be an America?
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hey, so I thought that was important to show to show that. That video, I guess, was produced and published yesterday. And the Lincoln Project are conservatives. And I know some of you have heard the name Kellyanne Conway. I think she was the information.
She is the information.
Now?
She wasn't the information. I don't think. She's an old lady that looks like she's shriveling up every day and day by day. There's always lying and defending Trump.
Always defending
blonde
Trump.
hair, thin face.
I know the name. I don't know what she looks like. But her husband, George Conway, who's a lawyer, there in that particular area, is one of the main people who put this video together. There's a gentleman by the name of Rick Wilson who has a pedigree of making this type of videos for Republicans previous, and usually it's attacking the liberals and the Democratic side, but he's put his efforts in combination with George Conway and a couple of others to make the video that you saw right now. So just to be clear, that video you just saw was produced by conservatives. The Lincoln Project produced that video and put it out. So even some conservatives are tired of this administration, which is kind of interesting to me. And I want to make sure I showed and played that. You can find that video. It's on my on my website, or not my website, but on my Facebook page. You'll be able to find it on there also if you'd like to see it.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's telling. I think that there's a survey that came out today out of Texas, a conservative group in Texas that has Biden and Trump in a 43-43 split. People say, well, that's just a tie. Well, yeah, but this is a conservative, very, 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 very conservative state, Texas, who is putting the survey out. So if Trump is in that kind of status, 8 months out from the election, I'm quite sure he's feeling the pressure. Now, what's going to happen? Who knows? Is he going to take us into a war? What is he going to do?
Well, he's already tried it. He's trying to say that this is a war that we're in now. We're fighting an unseen adversary and
blaming everybody, not taking any. And it's not necessarily.
If you're on our show, please share. I didn't mean to cut you off, but share. Hit the share button so that others can come in to understand and give me a good intellectual understanding of this.
We got quite a few people on there right now. So, but it's you and I had this conversation a month ago, and I know we talked about it when we were on the radio station, and you didn't understand my optimism and my faith in people.
Optimism about what?
Just that things are not going to stay the way. America is not going to stay as bad as America is right now. There's going to be a lot of issues, a lot of pain, a lot of growing. That's going to happen, i.e. we got 70,000 Americans who are dead now because of our delayed response, our government's delayed response to how we were dealing with the COVID virus. And how.
So what do you project? What do you see as the future for America? I think it's going to get a lot worse.
It is. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse between now and November.
Oh, it's going to get worse
January. Now in January, it's going to get very, very, very. It's going to get tough, and I don't know. So
when you say tough,
I can't explain it. Here's the best picture I can.
Have you seen what happened over the weekend with these? It wasn't black folks, it wasn't Mexican folks, it wasn't rich white folks at the courthouses with their guns and their fatigues trying to say we need to open up the country. Those are the people that we need to, the people that he has hoodwinked and that believe in that form of government, the I, the me. Let's make America great again, taking us back before most of these people were even born. Type of government. The folks that are in the understanding, they know now it's so bad that they are willing to say, "Oh man, we messed up. We voted for this fool and we messed up." But that's what happens when you put a businessman in charge of a country and you're trying to run a country like a business.
You got to stay in your lane. The government is government. Business is business. And there are elements of business and government. There's elements of government and business, but they are two distinct avenues to be traveled on separately. And unfortunately, I agree with you that our electoral in 2016, wanting to make change, said, well, Jesse Ventura, the wrestler, was the governor of Minnesota. We had Arnold Schwarzenegger,
but Ventura was more. He had more stake flesh in the game than
What about Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Hey, jackass.
Well, I mean, but he was our governor.
Jackass.
But it was because of the conservatives, the Republicans, who went after Gray Davis, who took that Enron whole deal, that Enron that flipped upside down, and blamed him for all the power outages and power problems we were having in the state of California when it wasn't Gray Davis. they took advantage. The conservative side took advantage of something that was beyond his control and politicized it, and was able to do a recall and get him out. But Arnold Schwarzenegger was married to a
Shriver,
but she's a Kennedy,
right?
So
I'm not really following. Okay, because the way I see it, the rich folks have been trying to run roughshod over the poor and the middle class. They don't care who the puppet master is. They found that out with Ronald Reagan. They could put anybody they want in there. They prop him up. They give him a speech. He goes in there. He
was a staunch liberal in his early days, and when he got into politics, and he became a conservative.
So it doesn't. To me, I don't get the point.
The system is pushing back on itself.
The system
is pushing back on it. Here, you just saw the example of the conservatives pushing back on themselves.
So if you're saying the system is pushing back on it, the Democrats or the liberals are pushing back on themselves?
They have. When Barack Obama was in office, they pushed back on him, and that was one of the reasons why we resulted in the situation with who we got now. Was the pushback at the end of?
But that wasn't the They pushed back on. Okay, I can see what you're saying. They didn't push back on Barack Obama. They pushed back on Hillary Clinton.
On the progressive side, there were people, and I know people who voted Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. I don't know how to explain that.
Are they
white
nationality?
I don't know any. I'm sure I know some black folks who did it, but white and Hispanic people. I'm sure that a person such as, I can think of a couple of people who probably voted Barack, Donald Trump.
Then they're damn fools and idiots.
Well, I disagree with it also, but I'm interested in the why.
You disagree with me saying, or?
No. I agree with you what you're saying, but I'm just saying what I want to know is the why. Because
if you voted that way, you're a damn fool and idiot. You're the ones that put us in this position, and I'm going to say it because nobody else is going to stand up and say it. Also, if you didn't vote, well, I'm not going to vote. I'm going to sit on the sidelines.
There's
and
a lot of that happened also.
You're a damn idiot also because a no vote is just as good as a yes vote for the other side.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of that happened also.
Oh yeah, I think it was more of that than there was of people running out from the other side voting for Donald Trump. But hey, I'm not. That's not my thing. I'm not a political scientist.
I just think that
I still will say that the African Americans are schizophrenic, and as a whole culture, and schizophrenic people usually pop up and do whatever is the first thing on their mind.
Okay.
And so if I give you an idea and a thought, you're going to run with it.
Okay, pushback. I wish I had the slides. I know I shared it at one of these shows we had on there. There's a misnomer out there that African American people don't vote. That's not true.
We discussed that.
We're the highest ethnic voting base of any of the ethnicities. We vote at a higher rate, percentage-wise than even Caucasian people.
But I don't see why that's significant.
But I think so here's why all of this is significant. Did you hear about the 500-car brigade in San Francisco?
No.
Supporting the governor and his stay in place order. Have you seen any of the other demonstrations of people who are supporting their governors and their mayors and people who
I have not.
Because one of the things that's happening is those stories are not being told. And so there are people, there is a system out there, there's a whole nother side to this tale that we're not being exposed to. The media's not talking about it, and unless you're linked into some of these liberal, it's not all of them are liberal, some of them are moderate, but if you're not linked into those other news outlets, then you're not going to get that information. You're only going to see. So one of my local guys here, I was supposed to be on a show a couple weeks ago, and we wound up misconnecting each other. He's taking pictures at the Sacramento protest, and he's African American. He's taking pictures there with no mask. He calls it modern day slavery, and so I'm interested to have a conversation with him about his mindset. He's got a little baby. He's got a child. I don't even know
what's modern day slavery.
That's what he says. Is that when we're told
what is modern day?
That
slavery?
When we're told to shelter in place, and that the businesses are to be closed, that just to be sheltered in place, is modern day slavery. And I want to have a conversation with him to see how he equates.
Well, for me, that's ignorance too. I mean, you have to be careful. It's not, with a small child or an elderly relative or a person who has a compromised immune system or a serious first ailment, that's dumb. But hey,
that's him.
You have to. No, we as a country have to govern to the smallest intellectual capacity for us to be okay. Because you see people every day walking around because they don't think that it's them. That's what they say about teenagers, right? That they're invincible. They can do anything, and they're not gonna, hey, I'm bulletproof. I'm not gonna die. I'm good. So yeah, but when it happens to him, because
I hope it doesn't.
I hope it doesn't either.
Yeah,
but when it does
tragic.
happen to him, is it our responsibility? It's like smoking, or drinking and driving. Is it the society's responsibility to pick up the pieces after this person has made the mistake of drinking and driving, or smoking for 30 years, or going out taking pictures in a group when there is a disease out there or a virus out there with no cure right now other than to get it and to last through it. That's ignorance.
Agreed. Like I always say though, I'm always curious about the why. If you're ignorant, ignorance is the absence of knowledge, and you have the absence of knowledge.
Well, what puts knowledge into you?
Experience is one.
Okay, paying compliance.
Paying compliance is
What's
another.
his experience? When something happens to someone in his family, then he will understand.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on.
We're not wishing that on anybody. He's out there, I can't say what I want to say, but he's out there doing what he needs to do, asking. He's wishing this on himself by not taking these precautions. And then when you get bit by the dog and you walking out there when there's a wild dog on your street, whose responsibility is that?
Again, go to lhi.care/COVID testing and go get tested. Empower yourself with the knowledge that you need to be able to either, if you've got the virus or you've got antibodies that you've been exposed to it, or you're a carrier and you could be exposing other people to the virus, then at least you know what's going on. But just as Gerald's saying, to have ignorance, there's an example of ignorance. That you think that you're invincible, that you see this as modern day slavery, that no, I don't want to do this, no.
How does that equate to slavery?
I mean, that's his word. That's not mine.
Very, very touchy.
Those are his words, not mine. And so I'm loving, and hopefully I'll get another invitation extended to me to go on his. He has a, what do you call it? Not Comcast. The
podcast.
Podcast. He has a podcast that he does, and so hopefully I'll get an invitation to go
you
back on.
You don't want to shout out his podcast?
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I don't want to call out his name or type of stuff. But if you've been following Facebook on my page, whatever, you've seen some of the conversations going on there. And people have, there was a couple people just flat ass deleted them. I didn't even know you were my fan. I mean, we were friends on here. Oh, I got to delete you, and he's like, thank you. Just the kind of that. That back and forth type of stuff.
Once again, I say, is he African American?
Yeah, he is.
Okay. Once again, I will state, jump up and down, nail it down with 10 penny nails. The African American community is schizophrenic. Sometimes we got to do this way. We got to roll with the punches this way so that we can continue to have what we have, and then other times we got to roll with the punches this way to have what we got to have.
But schizophrenic, and that's just me being technical.
Be technical.
Is involuntary. If you have schizophrenia,
no. Schizophrenia is not. Well, it's what schizophrenia is. It's when your mind is under so much stress and pressure that it cracks and it breaks. And in order for you to live in that environment in which you are, you create another entity.
Okay, I see how you make. I got you. I see how you're making a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah, we do. I call it code switching because we do. We do that intentionally. We do that to have to survive.
It's code. Yes. Okay.
And that schizophrenia.
Once again,
schizophrenia. You don't do to
we
survive.
had this conversation once before. I'm done with code switching and all schizophrenia and all of that.
Schizophrenia. You can't turn schizophrenia on and off. Code switching is a matter of what your environment is.
You turn it off by the pressures on which you become under, and then your mind switches on its own to a different.
But under schizophrenia,
that's what I'm talking about.
But under schizophrenia, when it's on, ain't no off. There is no off. There is no cure for schizophrenia. They can control it with medication and therapy and those type of things, but there is no off to schizophrenia. Code switching, there is an off. You know, if I'm in Butler Park and I'm doing my thing in Butler Park, then that's the code that I'm under. When I'm at work, Madera Unified, Fresno Unified, there's a different code. I can't take the Butler Park code into Fresno Unified or in the Madera Unified. Most of the time I can't take that back there when I'm with my fraternity brother.
Why can't you? And I'm going to tell you.
It's a matter of survival a lot of times.
Okay.
It's a matter of survival. It's a matter of
it's a matter of being accepted by the power elite structure.
Correct.
That's what I was explaining last time we talked about the system of racism, white supremacy, and how African Americans cannot be racist because we don't have we don't have the power to be racist. I don't have the power to inflict upon you to make you code switch.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Well, maybe you don't. Gerald Miller doesn't. But there are African Americans.
We're going to agree to disagree on that.
Bob Jones, the old boy that used to own the Bobcats and BET, he can force you. He can be racist. Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry. Who are some of these other folks?
I don't know.
Bill Cosby.
I don't buy into that. I don't believe in that.
Okay, I'm just.
They could be mean and they could be bigoted.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I think because racism and capitalism, although they're not brothers and sisters, they are step brothers and sisters to one another as far as I'm concerned. Because you cannot be a good racist.
Like liars and cheaters?
Because you cannot be a good racist and be a bad capitalist. Because it's just ignorance then at that point in time. So that's why I couldn't, when we were growing up, and so the kids were in the McLean area. That was some of in Clovis too, when we were back in the 70s and 80s. That was some of the worst racism that I ever saw. Kids who went to parochial school. Some of the worst racism, as when I got to be an adult, doing games, that type of stuff, some of the worst racism from kids came from kids in parochial schools.
And how are they racist?
Comments, actions, beliefs, expectations, the privilege, the entitlement that they felt with that. And I'm talking across, I'm sure inside of those units, there was also racism and ethnicity. But school A, parochial, to school B.
Who in this society that we're in gets to decide if something is racist or not?
Who decides it?
Who gets to decide it?
I don't. Well, society tries to define it, but I don't know. I think it's the individual person, and how it's impacting the individual or the group. That's what I would think, because, I didn't really believe that Fresno was a racist place because I was able to do everything I wanted to do until I got to Fresno State and took a class with Dr. Rogers, who's no longer with us. And we had this long running debate with him about how he would tell me how racist Fresno was. And I just did not understand racism. And then he started asking me a series of questions. Can you work any place in Fresno, in Clovis that you want to? No. Can you go and be comfortable in any neighborhood here in Fresno, Clovis? So when he started asking me those questions, and I started to internalize them, not just through my lens, but through lens of other young, in particular young black boys or young black men at that particular time, then I could see the differences with it. But it took it, I was 21, 22 years old when I was taking that class. And he and I used to have these long, in his class, these long debates. I mean, it'd be, 15 of us in there. It was mostly underclass when I was older. But we'd have these long debates, and he wound up honoring me at the end of the year with the Rosa Parks Award because of the conversations and the enlightenment that I went through with him. And so it's ignorance, agreed. There's different ways. I think the best way to overcome ignorance is through experience. Because everybody believes the boogeyman is real. The boogeyman is in the closet, is under the bed. Boogeyman's coming to get you until you go to that closet and open it, and there is no boogeyman in there. Or you go and look under your bed.
And I call that process education.
Right, that's experience. But that's going from ignorance. Ignorance is that the boogeyman exists. I'm ignorant. I'm absence of knowledge about the existence of the boogeyman in that closet. Until I go and open the closet, I have no experience of doing that.
Education is just not because you've experienced something.
I think that's the best learning, though. That's been the best learning tool for me. It's my best way of being able to
because you can do the same thing over and over and over and over and over, and get the same negative experience over and over and over, and never learn.
Oh yeah, you learn. A drug addict is using drugs. A heroin fiend is doing something. I got you.
Okay.
A heroin fiend is doing something bad, and they know it's bad. The alcoholic is doing something bad, and they know it's bad. Most abusers, say in a domestic violence situation, are doing something bad, and they know it's bad. But it's what they learn, and they turn it, they flip it. As you talk about the mind and how the mind works, they flip it to justify it.
Well, a lot of times when people are doing crimes, they're doing those things to make themselves feel better. It's about a power and control. It's not. It's not about the ignorance of understanding that that's a negative policy. But that's what I ask you: who determines in our society what's racist or not? And it's the courts.
Yeah. But they don't use the same. They don't use the same rule book. Well, I shouldn't say that. No,
well,
that's not.
Okay,
that's not a good statement. Let me correct the statement. They use this. They don't apply. They use the same rule book, but they don't apply it in the same way.
What rule book? What do you mean?
The law, the legal, what it's called, the penal code, the laws of the land, the penal codes, the ed code, whatever the sections are, federal, whatever, I don't know what they call it, federal and those type of things. They have they have a rule book.
Yeah, but they're in charge, and so they can rule and throw in, leave in, put out, do whatever they want to make the outcome become the way they want it to become.
And there is your system of supremacy, white, what do you call it?
Racism,
white supremacy.
Correct.
It's not the rule book, it's the application. So
no, it's the courts is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what it says in the books. If you bring something to the courts, that person was racist toward me. Okay, it's a violation of X, Y, and Z. Right? You go to court and you're going to prove that this person is is a racist toward you. You go to court, you prove that he's racist. Da 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 da. You're sitting there, you know that you're going to get a positive verdict. And these 12 people with a mindset that white folks are the greatest and can do whatever they want come back and say, no, that's not racist.
Okay.
The courts determine
here's
everything in our society.
Here's even why it's more insidious than that. So even if those 12 jurors convict African American A, non-African American B, so African American,
right? Well, convict African American.
Yeah, so they can say you did. The jury can come back and say, yeah, you did what these people accuse you of doing.
Whoa, how did you get to Africa? Why is the African American person being being the guilty party when
Both of them. I'm saying that both parties are guilty. Both anybody who's whatever race you want to put out there, they're found guilty of whatever the crime is.
Racism is what I'm saying.
It's in the. I'm saying the racism exists in the application. It's not the rule book itself. It's not the ed codes. It's not the penal code. It's the way that whether it be the jury, the judge, the system applies the application of those rules that they're supposed to, the adjudication of it. Because you can have two people commit the same crime in the same manner, one be black, one be white, and the sentences will be different. What's the difference between crack cocaine and cocaine? The recipe. How you make it. It's the same substance. It's just that one substance has other things put in it, and whatever it is, baking soda and whatever things they put in there to make it rock up. And powder cocaine is I guess in its natural state. You can have the same amount of the drug, powder versus crack, and the crack person who's selling that will get a greater sentence than a person with powder cocaine.
Yeah, because on the books it says that through mandatory sentencing, the crack dealers are going to get X, and the powder cocaine users are going to get X. Not because they went into court and the judge said we're going to give you more because you're African American, or of course it came down to who uses or sells one substance more than the other. Yeah, I get that.
When did the mandatory minimums come into place?
I don't know, 80s.
That was Clinton, right? Or was it Reagan?
I want to say,
or was it
right after
was
Reagan?
It Bush? So it was Daddy Bush.
Daddy Bush, probably.
Okay. So what did they do before that time? Yeah, that would be right, because the crack epidemic would have been.
What do you mean? What did they do before that time?
Because the mandatory minimums has only been in existence the last 30 years.
So once again, what's the subject? Mandatory minimums now?
No. I'm just using that as an example. You talked about where does the racism come into it. Here's an example that you're given of the system being racist.
Well, the whole system is rooted in racism.
Correct.
But that's not what I'm trying to get across.
Then I'm lost. What point are you trying to get to?
A white person.
I hear you. I'm just saying that the book itself is the book. The laws that are in the books are the laws that are in the books.
Who makes the laws and puts them in the books?
People. People in history.
Okay.
Historical figures.
The precedent setting cases.
Correct.
Are what you have to go by. Has this ever been blah 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 blah? The legislation says we're no longer going to fly drones in certain places, and then they pass a law. And I'm just a bill. Now what you're saying is the applications of those laws are what is which makes it racism or not. The application of those said laws.
Correct. Mandatory minimums, I agree with you, is a great example of the system correcting itself to be more racist. Because
you don't have to agree with me on that. You're the one that brought that up and said that. Use that example. You're agreeing with yourself.
But I was trying to focus on the application of the law, and that was a bad example that I used because you're right.
Because
the laws were changed.
You go into a courtroom, a young African American male, and you're sitting in a courtroom, and the judge is Caucasian, the attorneys are Caucasian, the jury is Caucasian, and dead to rights. Your neighbor came over and slapped you upside your head and called you all kind of misfits and goons and goblins and all kind of stuff, and the police came out, and all they do is write a report because they're witnesses for the state. They write a report that says these are this, and they sit there and you go through the whole trial, and it's dead to right that this man has done all of these things to you, and the jury goes, no, it's okay.
The jury says, yeah, they did, but we're going to fine them $1. Your judgment is $1. Your judgment, instead of
Oh
being
no, the judge, they're not going to do that.
the judge does.
No, the jury says no. Well, he's not. He's not.
Well, you got
Dismissed.
juries. You got juries that agree and says yes. The boy that that raped kid in the swimmer at Stanford, he was caught in the downstroke with this girl who was inebriated, and the jury found him guilty of rape. I don't know what degree of rape, but he was found guilty of rape, and the judge then and the jury found him guilty, and the judge then came in there and says that it would be a huge shock, basically a huge shock to his system, and he gave him.
It would be an injustice to put this white to pin this on this young white kid, and it could ruin his life.
Correct, but the jury said, "Yeah, you did what you're accused of."
But the jury could have. My thing is, the jury could say no, and guess what? It's gone.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I got you. Anyway, let's get off that subject. So, happy Cinco de Mayo. I want to talk about this real quick.
Okay.
So that people, I did some research today. I knew this, but I need to go back in there and make sure that what I thought I knew was actual. But for those of you who do not realize what Cinco de Mayo means, obviously 5th of May, it is not Mexico's independence. Mexico's independence is actually September 16th. And the Mexican independence was actually in 1810. And it's when Mexico broke off from Spain in 1810. September 16th, 1810 is the Mexican independence. Today, May 5th, 1862, Cinco de Mayo, represents what's called the Battle of Puebla, which is just southeast of Mexico City. It was a battle that happened at that particular time between Mexican, basically indigenous, and a merry band of Mexicans that was down there defending the turf, who took on Napoleon III, not Napoleon Bonaparte that we know about, that was over there fighting in Africa stuff. This was his nephew. So Napoleon III, who was ruling at that time, sent over Frenchmen, going to take a big chunk out of Mexico because Mexico owed money to France, and that's how they were going to get their money back, was by taking out and colonizing Mexico for France. The Battle of Puebla, the Mexicans fought them off and kept them at bay. But the battle actually took 5 years, if I remember correctly, took 5 years to complete. And so today, Cinco de Mayo is significant of the battle at Puebla in 1862, not Mexican independence.
Happy Corona Day.
You're funny. That's bad.
Run out there and get your Corona. Happy Corona Day.
That's bad. That's because Corona is associated with all kind of.
It's a beer.
I got you, but that ain't the way people see Corona right now. There's people who will not buy Corona beer because
they're ignorant.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So here's one of the things. And I'm glad that I kind of did what I did because it piqued my curiosity. Because this date is significant. 1862. What else was going on in 1862 in the Americas? Into slavery. 1865, Emancipation Proclamation. 1863, 1865, during that period of time is when the Emancipation Proclamation happened in the United States, freeing slaves. There is I didn't think about getting this, but I did a presentation one time talking about Juneteenth and how Galveston, Texas, which is down in the border, there were a lot of Africans because Mexico actually got out of the slavery business before America did.
Long before.
It wasn't that long. It was like 30-something years or something like that. I think.
Would you want to be a slave for 30 years?
So slavery ended. There it is, right there. Slavery ended in Mexico in 1829.
Because the Spanish government outlawed slavery.
No, it wasn't the Spanish government. It was Vicente Guerrero, who was the second president of Mexico, who outlawed that. This is after Mexico had separated from Spain. That was So just to clarify that, just to say, Vicente Guerrero, who was an Afro-Mexican, his dad was African and Mexican descent, his mom was indigenous, was the person who outlawed slavery in Mexico in 1829. So it was about, almost 40 years, 35 years or so. And so there was a lot of Africans who were fleeing out of Texas, coming across out of Louisiana, going across Texas out of the bottom, going into Mexico. So Juarez and those places along the Rio Grande Valley, going into Mexico because they knew that they could be free over there. And that's where the the Alamo and those Davy Crockett and those guys was making those runs out into Mexico, that type of stuff to U.S. Because also what happened with this debt, the reason why France was going in there to take out a chunk of land, Mexico, when they took their independence, owed a bunch of money. They owed a bunch of money to the United States, they owed a bunch of money to Spain, they owed a bunch of money to France. Well, the United States and the Spanish cut some kind of deal. I guess France got left out the deal, and so that's why Napoleon III was going and cutting into Mexico to go take him a chunk. Here's the other interesting part about that region. You familiar with the Mexican map? How it kind of goes like a basket over on the Cuba side where Cancun is. There's an area over there that's called Veracruz. Okay,
the Yucatan Peninsula.
The Yucatan Peninsula. So this is where the Battle of Puebla took place, not too far inland from there. The French, when they were going to fight in this war, that's where they hit land, was in Veracruz. So on the Gulf side, not on the Pacific side, on the Gulf side is where France was coming in to go to Mexico City, going towards Mexico City to take them over. That Veracruz area is very, very interesting because of the Olmecs. You know about the Olmecs, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the region where the Olmecs were. So there's a presence of Africans in Mexico at that particular time. And so I want to go there. I've been to Cancun, but I want to go further down, or not down, kind of around, to go to Veracruz to be able to check out this area there and look at the people. Look at the skin tones and the colorations of the people. So then that sparked my curiosity to kind of take a look at slave trade. I listened to this other guy's podcast the other day about Africans in America before Columbus. And
Which is a book.
It's a book. There's a bunch of researchers. People don't know about it because it's not talked about a whole bunch, but there's a bunch of people. There's this German dude, was he German or Russian? I don't remember anyway, from Europe, who came over at the beginning of the 19th century.
It's called They Came Before Columbus. I'm not sure who.
That's
von Sertima.
Ivan von Sertima, but he's African American. There is a white guy that came over from England, Eastern Europe, who came over, went to someplace, Barbados or somewhere, was going to set up a commune, didn't work out, went to the United States and became a professor at Harvard. And he in his travels in the Caribbean, saw remnants and historical factors and features, artifacts that Africans were in the Caribbean way long before Columbus. And so I listened to his podcast. So then I looked at the map. I challenge everybody to do this. Look up a place called, it's RECIFE, it's Brazil. It's the farthest eastern tip of the country of Brazil. And measure that to Monrovia, Libya. Liberia. Monrovia, Liberia, which is a lot of places where a lot of the Africans came over to the United States. Actually, I think Monrovia, if I'm not mistaken, is named after our president, Monroe, in Liberia. It's only 2,000 miles. So that's like going from here to New Orleans. So that's, 4-hour plane trip. To think that people couldn't have gone and made that trip in a boat.
Well, look, here's the concept. Okay, off the coast of Africa, where do all the hurricanes start?
Don't know.
Off the coast of Africa.
Okay.
So if you're an African off the coast of Africa, off of the western coast of Africa, and you're out there fishing, and the weather changes, and you get caught up in a hurricane, where do all the hurricanes go?
To the United States, to the Caribbean, right?
So is it a I mean, I don't. Yeah. Africans were here long before anybody else. They were the first people on the planet. The currents of the
Atlantic Ocean, correct.
would bring them to the Americas long before anybody else.
There's two major currents that happen in the Atlantic. One's in the southern part below the equator. The other one is above the equator. And there's history of, even Columbus talked about it, that people would get caught up in those
Columbus
currents.
ever make it to the United States?
I don't know. Where did he make it to? He made it to...
He made it to Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or somewhere like that.
Yeah. But they would get caught up in those currents and couldn't get out of them.
Right.
And they would take off and leave. There's historical records out of Portugal and Spain. Those boats parties of boats being separated because one would get into the current and couldn't navigate out of it, and the other one would never get in there, and they get separated. And one would go back home with a report, and the other one would wind up in, the Caribbean somewhere or whatever. But that Veracruz, if you look at how
Are there more Are there more black people in Brazil or in the United States?
I don't know.
In Brazil.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't looked at that. But if you look at the geography of where that is, that area where Veracruz is sheltered. Because if the hurricane is coming out of the Atlantic, it's got to go across land, Cancun and those places, across the Caribbean, the islands
They
out there.
turn and go up into the Gulf of Mexico.
So what I'm saying is that's a great place, that Veracruz, if you can navigate and get through all of that, whether it be a hurricane that drug you over there or whatever, once you got over to where Veracruz is, it's going to be a nice area. You don't have to fight the currents and stuff. So it'd be interesting to find out what other cultures have been there.
That's why the pirates set up Nassau, Bahamas.
Why? Because of the
currents, because they could get to that place and hide in all of the islands that are in the Bahamas. Oh yeah, it's history.
So I'm fascinated by all that. I'm very curious. I have never really thought about it, but as I start looking at the dates, the Cinco de Mayo date of 1862, that they fought that the French came in port through Veracruz. They fought in Puebla, which is, I don't know how far it is, but it's a little bit inland. That the Olmecs, those big head statues.
Those people were long gone though.
I got you, but I'm saying is there was a presence there.
Yeah.
And those statues, those Stonehenge type statues are still there. They have a park just for them.
Yeah.
So
They were
I wanna
before
be
the
able to-
Aztecs, before the Incas and the Mayas and all of those.
But that was in,
yeah.
so that was prior to that time. And then what's going on with the slaves escaping out of the United States, going out of Brownsville, across the Rio Grande, and went down towards that direction. How far down did they go? Did they make it to Veracruz also? And so I'm interested now, that whole, I almost said Mediterranean, but the Caribbean, the Mexico, Gulf of Mexico, the whole area there on Mexico. That's on my to-do list now. I want to go over there and just spend some time. The weather's probably beautiful over there. It's anything like Cancun in that whole area. But it's just looking at those facts today when I was going through all of this, it just kind of keep, how I am kind of geeky about that stuff, pricked my curiosity. And I thought that I would share that in connection with
Well, thank you.
honor of Cinco de Mayo today, honor of the African American or the African presence in America,
Corona Day?
and Corona Day. You're funny. So we're about out of time. One more time. Let me go through these real quick. Census 2020. Make sure you get your Census 2020 completed. Like I said, it's easy online. Hopefully KP will run this here in a second at the Chiron or whatever the hell it is at the bottom, so that you can go to that website and get your census done. Those of you, I'm encouraging everybody to go out and get your coronavirus testing, lhi.care/COVID testing. You go on there. It's a quick little survey that you go through, maybe 35 questions or so. You go through those and click, and at the end of those, then you go and you set up an appointment. The site that's here in Fresno is at Fresno City College in the gym. I want to say there's a site in Reedley, and I don't remember where the other two sites are, but there were 4 sites in Fresno County. So please, like I said, as Gerald said, ignorance, there's no reason to be ignorant about the coronavirus. There's an opportunity for you to go and get tested. Please take advantage of that. My brother, what's up?
Making it day by day, being beautiful along the way.
Okay. I'm not working on being beautiful. But we got to, maybe next week we can talk about Ahmaud Arbery, the jogger. And
well, we'll do that next week.
There'll be some more.
But what I'm seeing is a rise of police brutality against African Americans. As a whole across the nation. It's not even police, actually. It's the panic and the stricken and the fear that are on the minds of white folks right now. Before we leave and close this out, let me tell you a little incident that happened to me this past week. I was it was Monday morning. I went to the post office in Madera to mail a letter. And so I mailed my letter, and I was on the phone talking to Eric Coleman. So I said, well, let me walk and talk. So I walked around about 40 minutes in downtown Madera, and then not that long, probably about 20 minutes. Then I came back, and I leaned against the wall that's in front of the post office there in Madera. And I was talking to Eric, and I guess it was kind of loud. I had my headphones on, I don't know. And I could hear this guy mocking me from across the street. Laughing and joking, and Eric had told me something that really excited me, and so I let out a big laugh. I'm minding my own business. So I look up, and this guy is sitting in his car, this young white guy, across the street, and you can see him mouthing and pointing at me, and everybody's looking, but of course I could give a fat baby's rear, and so I took my headphone, and I could hear him say, yeah, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And I just, greeted him with a wave and a very derogatory slogan. And so I guess that kind of angered him. So I put my headphone back on because I'm not trying to even, he's backing up. He's leaving at this point. So he goes down the block. He's so irritated with me that he goes down the block, turns around, and comes back and parks about 6 to 8 feet away from me, and he's filming me. And once again, I look at him, but now I'm, at a kind of a heightened state. And trust me, I can protect myself in those situations. So it's not a big thing. I don't take my eyes off of him. But I slipped the earphone back to hear what he was saying, and he's calling me all kind of derogatory names. And he says, why don't you go get a job instead of hanging out here in front of the post office? And I started all day, and I started laughing so hard because I had just taken my bills in. It's the first of the month, and paid my bills, which was well over $1,500. And this jackass is sitting here telling me, because nothing more than me being a black man, he has an issue with it. So I laugh, and I give him the derogatory diet of the day again, and put my headphones back on, and he's still sitting there trying to engage with me in some type of.
You didn't tell me he didn't have permission to film you?
Oh, you can film anybody you want.
Not if you don't give them permission. If you tell them they don't have permission,
it's a public place.
If you tell them they don't have permission.
Well, the funny thing, I could care less about him filming. I don't care about. I could care less about him filming me. I just hope he went and had that dick sandwich I told him to go eat. But anyway, he will sit there and argue with me, who might as well have been mute, because I wasn't engaging with him. I didn't take my eyes off of him, but that's the level of anger that these Republicans and conservatives, who are mostly non-African American and non-Hispanic, non-Asian.
I got 2 African Americans I can introduce you to.
Okay, mostly non. Okay, those are the trials and tribulations that they're going through. So they have to put their anger out somewhere, and that's why my statement earlier about who runs the courts and what is the fair and just treatment that you will get in the courts, even though something has happened. Even in my situation, they were able to back, with the city of Fresno and the police department, they were able to turn the tide on me because I was simply defending myself against anyway, but that's why the courts are great. The courts are great, but they're not for us. And that was my point that I was making, because you go in the court and they can bend it any way they want to. Huh?
The court system is based on protecting property.
Well, okay.
Look at the origins of laws and the court system and those type of things here in the United States. It's all based off of protecting property. Anyway, we've gone for our 1 hour. What's your parting shots today?
Love, peace, and hair grease. Use it if you need it.
We don't. So anyway, that's good. Anyway, it's always a pleasure to be here with my brother, having our opinions.
Taco Tuesday.
Sharing our opinions with you on
Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesdays. With In Touch with the Miller Boyzzz.
One other thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to slide this. And then, because we had a discussion about sports folks and their bank accounts. And a thought came through my mind. Think about entertainers and not being able to entertain. Where their money coming from? So anyway,
residuals. But I mean, but you're right. That the entertainment business is taking a huge hit. But that's all athletics. But anyway, God willing, we'll see you back here next Tuesday, 8:00 for Tuesdays evenings with In Touch with the Miller Boyzzz. Till next week, peace.
Taco Tuesday.